All right, how's it going, everybody? It's Dr. Jeff, Chief Medical Officer at Rythmia Life Advancement Center in Costa Rica. Here's our 800 number to call. It's a U.S. number. Put the 1 in front of it before. Today I'm going to talk about boundaries with self. So what I notice with a lot of the guests that come here is they are really overwhelmed with a lot of baggage emotionally and energetically they've been kind of like taken on for their pretty much their whole life. And they're just confused by it. They're a little overwhelmed by it. They don't really understand like what it all means. They think it's them. And when we interact with people, there's all these different ways that we do this. And one way is that we open up to them and we make ourselves emotionally available. And what happens is in a conversation or a relationship or interacting with other people is that we absorb the energy or the vibe of that other person. That's how we understand who they are. That's how we can kind of like sense how they're feeling. That's how we can communicate emotionally with them. However, what happens is if you open up to somebody and you absorb their projection of dysfunctional emotion, what happens is that it becomes a burden that you're carrying for that person. So a lot of the guests that I work with here are very empathic people. They're healing people. Usually the helping professions, therapists and counselors and Reiki people and all these massage therapists, and they're just working with a lot of people all the time. They're opening themselves up to them. They're absorbing what's going on. Then that allows them to understand these people they're working with or they're talking to or their family or their friends. And if somebody is dysfunctional and you interact with them, they're projecting onto you a lot of their dysfunction so you can hold it for them. So if somebody's like, stressed out or angry, they want to hand that over to you so you can hold it for them, they get a break from it, or they can feel resolved in it. So what happens is that the people that absorb this, that are taking this on, get a bit overwhelmed. If you've done this your whole life, and a lot of people that have this trait have been doing it their whole life, and it's a way to understand their environment. It's a way that they can understand other people. It's usually based in trauma. It's a way they can understand how to be safe. And so it's a really good tool, but when you're doing it without knowing about it, that's where it becomes a little bit sketchy. So a lot of the guests that come here have this sort of situation where they're removing their own emotional kind of state and they're just opening up to these other people and they're absorbing their energy. So what happens, or their emotional projection. And what happens in that case is that it gets stressed out. They think they're crazy. They develop addictions. They start to become anxious and have depression. They become suicidal. There's all these things, but it's confusing because their life seems to be pretty good. They're doing okay. It's like it seems sort of like out of left field, like why they're feeling this way. But then when I break it down for them and show them what I'm going to talk to you guys about, it makes more sense because they're absorbing all this energy from other people. Often what's called the black sheep in the family is one of these people. The black sheep, is considered, right, the kind of pop culture term for black sheep is, oh, that's the odd one. That's the one that's like, the one that's causing all the problems. It's the opposite, actually. The black sheep person is the one that's absorbing all the energy that's dysfunctional from everybody around them in the family, right, and also the friends. They're absorbing it. And so they act it out because they're confused too, like why they feel this way, right? So what I want to talk about is boundaries with self, how to have boundaries with yourself so that you can manage this sort of dynamic. Now, boundaries with others is really clear, right? We all have boundaries with others. Like we talk appropriately, we have an appropriate space, there's a cultural component in there, what that means. I have boundaries with other people, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about boundaries with self, boundaries with you, your own boundaries with yourself. Okay, so what that means, as a person that's worked with thousands of patients, right, in a clinical setting, what that means is how far am I going to allow myself to become emotionally available to the person I'm working with? Okay, so that's what that means. So the example I like to give, and some of you that have had sessions with me and we talked about this, is the example that I give. When I was in Los Angeles, I had a wide range of different patients that I worked with. I had patients that were acute psychiatric patients, and I had people that were high functioning. I had everybody in between. I had kids as patients. I had women that had been victimized as patients. I had, you name it, I had them as patients. Okay, so there's a there's all these people required a different amount of my own emotional availability to be able to connect with them and understand their dynamic and allow myself to kind of like diagnose and work with them, right? So a person who is acutely psychotic has a different level of my emotional involvement, right, than somebody that is a 10-year-old kid who's being abused at home. Okay, so the 10-year-old kid is going to get a lot of my emotional availability, help them feel safe, kind of build trust, help them understand what's going on, get them to like talk to me about different things they're struggling with at home. Okay, so there's a lot of investment in me. Like I'm going to invest a lot emotionally. Now, then I have an acute paranoid schizophrenic who's in the psychiatric hospital, who's living in there for like a year. And the goal of therapy is hygiene and brushing the teeth. The goal is not to like, have appropriate conversations necessarily at this point in therapy with the family, or to go get a job, or to go back to school. Okay, that's not the goal of therapy at that point, right? Hopefully it is at some point. But the goal of that person was, we just want to get you to brush your teeth and take a shower, right? Okay, so my own emotional availability for that particular client, very different than the kid who was 10, who was at home and being victimized, right? Now, it doesn't have nothing to do with how much I care or appreciate or love or have interest in these people. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about my own emotional availability that I allow myself to use when I'm in a situation with a person I'm talking to, with a patient I'm working with a stranger on the street, with my own family member, with my wife, with my kids. There's all this different range. So you have to be aware of how much you are opening up to a situation. I always tell people, I say, you seem like somebody that goes to the grocery store and randomly people will start telling you their life story. Strangers will start spilling all kinds of issues they're dealing with. The grocer, the produce guy is telling you all his life story, and you didn't say one word, right? But you're just getting all this data, right? All the time you're in line at the grocery store, the person turns around and starts telling you stuff, right? It's crazy. Okay, so you've chalked it up to, I just must be approachable. I'm just a nice person. I must look a certain way that they feel comfortable. Okay, well, that's all true. That's all true. But there's another part. Your own emotional availability to meet the needs of other people is very strong, and it's wide open. And so what that means, okay, it green lights you into receiving a projection from people. So there's times when you want to do this, right? There's times when you don't want to do this. The times when you want to do this is when you're feeling unsafe, or when you're in a new environment, or when you're walking down the street at night, or when you're in a wedding and you don't know any of the people there at your table, and you want to understand who they are, right? There's times to do this that are totally okay, or you want to actually help somebody and help them relieve their pain. You can do this, right? You can be open. You can absorb the energy if you want to. You can connect. But there's other times where it's not appropriate, right? And those times are strangers, people that you don't know, which is also strangers. There's times when you're tired. There's times when you're overwhelmed. There's times when you're at the end of your day and you don't want to do this anymore. There's a lot of times when you don't need to do this. You're not getting paid, $200 to $300 an hour to be somebody's therapist, right? If you are, cool, then you can do it, right? But you're not. Like, go charge the grocer $200. The guy, the produce guy, go charge him $200 for that conversation, because that's what you're doing. You're doing therapy. Okay, so how do you have boundaries with yourself? Okay, this is how you do it. Okay, I'm just going to break it down. You have to be plugged into who you are emotionally at the time. You have to be connected to yourself. The way I do it, and the way I give advice to other people to do it, is I say, look, identify 4 or 5 emotions you're feeling before you go into a public arena. And just think about, okay, how am I doing? Okay, well, I'm hungry. It's around lunchtime. I'm not tired. I had a good night's sleep. I'm a little stressed out because I have something to do later in the evening that I'm a little worried about. I'm in a generally good mood. Okay, boom. Okay, that's how you're feeling emotionally yourself. Plug into that. Then you go into the public environment, the grocery store, talk to some friends, see your family. All of a sudden you feel something that is not one of those emotions you mentioned. All of a sudden you feel sadness, depression. Logically, you would think to yourself, wow, if I'm feeling sad, I must be bummed out about something because I'm feeling sad, right? Logic, common sense says I'm sad. No, not for you, because you were not sad before you got into that public setting. you are picking up on somebody else's sadness. Okay, so you have two choices right there. You can look around and see who maybe is sad, or you can just say, okay, this is a public setting. I don't know who's sad. I don't need to figure it out. I'm going to get this sadness off of me either now or later in the day. Okay, if you get it off now, you just say, look, it's that person's over there. I'm going to redirect it back to them with a healed, sort of connected manner. I feel bad that you're sad. That totally sucks. I wish you didn't feel sad. You don't have to say any words because they're strangers. Just think it to yourself. It's not your sadness. That's one way. Sometimes we don't have the luxury to do that, so then you have to get it off of you later. The way you get it off of you is you do things that plug you into yourself, oftentimes physical and mind, body, spirit things. Yoga, meditation, exercise, going for a walk, eating a healthy meal, listening to some good music, talking to some good friends. Okay, those are ways that you get it off of you energetically. Okay, so that's the way you can have a healthy boundary with yourself. You have to understand where you are emotionally with you and how you're feeling. Because if you don't feel, if you're not plugged into yourself, you're basically going to absorb all this stuff from all the people around you, right? And I'm telling you, a lifetime of this leads to addiction, suicidality, anxiety, depression, confusion, hopelessness, all kinds of stuff is what this leads to. Okay, so it's an amazing tool. It's an amazing tool, but you have to be aware that it's happening. You have to just own it. When I owned that I have this ability to open up to people and absorb their energy, everything became so much easier. Because before I understood it, I was like, whoever I was around, I just picked up on it. And I just felt like, oh yeah, whatever, like I must be stressed out or something. But like it was, no, I'm not stressed out. I'm picking up the stress of other people. Okay, so I learned that when I'm plugged into myself, I can choose if I want to absorb the energy of other people and the projection of people, or if I want to just kind of not have that occur. So the way, if you don't want it to occur at all, you just stay connected to you. I'm grounded. I'm a little bit hungry. I'm a little bit anxious for tonight for something I got to do, but I feel good. I'm generally happy. Okay, stay with that, because then you're not green lighting people to bombard you with their own energy and their own emotional projection. You guys have 4 traits that green light people. You're a loving person, you're a caregiver, you're perceived as emotionally stable, and the 4th one that we're talking about right here, emotional boundaries with yourself are unclear. Okay, don't change being loving, don't change being a caregiver, don't change being emotionally stable or perceived as such. Right? Change the emotional boundaries with yourself are unclear. Don't make them unclear. Make them clear. Okay, be clear. The way you be clear is you plug into yourself, you know where you're at, and then when you interact with the world, if you don't want to get a projection, you don't have to. If you don't need to understand somebody's vibe, then you just stay with you. Okay, so that's how you do it. This is for a lot of the empaths out there, a lot of the people that are absorbing energy and feel overwhelmed and confused. Okay, boundaries with self. How much emotional energy am I willing to invest to meet the needs of other people? Okay, that's what that is. That's a key concept. Okay, think about that. How much of my own emotional energy am I willing to accept and use to meet the needs of other people? Okay, sometimes it's a lot, sometimes it's a little, sometimes it's none. Okay, and you have to look at that. And that's how you can stay plugged into yourself, not get bombarded. You can navigate your life in a really healthy way. And you can be happy, healthy, safe, and thriving. All right, you guys, thanks for watching. Pura vida from Costa Rica. See you next Monday.